Can you hear me now? That's nice. So I've been sitting here talking to myself for about the last, what, 10 minutes? I'm surprised anybody stayed around at all with no sound running. Just, I put the link up for anybody that just wants to come up and talk about pretty much anybody in music that's passed away and what that person or that band's music meant to them over the years, and or what they might remember from a concert they once saw, or a band that that they saw that they'll never get to see again, or that they want to, that they want to see, and now they'll never have a chance to. I was uh, I was blessed to get to see Van Halen twice. I got to see him in 1993. I'm sorry, in 1998. 1998, they had Gary Sharon from the band Extreme was their lead vocalist at the time. It was an open air venue called the Woodlands in Houston, Texas, and that was pretty good. And then I was very blessed to see them in 2003 with Sammy Hagar. Um, I mean, I know they weren't really getting along at the time, but the show itself was still, I mean, it was still Van Halen through and through, man. I mean, Sammy singing, Eddie on guitars and keyboards. You had Alex on drums. You had Michael Anthony on bass. Man, it was something. How you doing, Blue Sandy? I mean, just Eddie Van Halen, to say that he was a one of a kind would be to belittle him. It's not enough to describe what he did for the rock and roll generation. The way he played that guitar, man, it was like it was a once in a lifetime. The man, um, what he did so effortlessly, and he knew how to pull emotions out of people, man, with them chords and strings. And the way he used to, when he first started off, he knew what he had was something special, and he didn't want anybody else to have it. So when he first started playing, he would play with his back to the crowd, and he played with his back to the crowd because when he was double tapping them strings, it was unheard of. Nobody played like that, and he didn't want anybody else to know how he was playing. Yeah, Tom Petty was a big one too. See, now I just found out about Tom Petty. When they said Tom Petty died of a mixed drug overdose, I didn't think much of it. Guy's been a stoner all his life, and who knows what else he was doing. But I just found out that Tom Petty, they were on what, their 30th or 40th anniversary tour, and he played more than half that tour with a broken hip. This man was running around or walking around the stage for 2 hours a night, standing on his own volition, playing with a broken hip. Of course, he was on drugs, man. I mean, how do you play a concert with a broken damn hip? So, much respect to Tom Petty for sure. Unlike Axel, he didn't sit in the big throne. AZ Coins, you got to see Van Halen in a backyard party. I bet that was pretty awesome. I bet that was something else. Traveling Wilburys. Is that End of the Line? Is that the one where they have all the band members in the video except for Roy Orbison, and they have his picture in there? Yeah, that is. I thought that video was very, very classy when they did that. Right. It really was well done. They did a lot. They paid a lot of respect to Roy Orbison in that video. And Tom Petty was kind of an up and newcomer when the Traveling Wilburys got together, and I remember him saying that he was the young kid in the band, and he was just very blessed to be there. And I was like, man, can you imagine that, playing with people like Roy Orbison and people, the oh, what's his name, George Harrison, and people like that. Man, it's pretty wild. Yeah, yeah, that was pretty great, Leanne. There's a lot of respect in that. Hey, Fox Run, how you doing? With the passing of Eddie Van Halen tonight, we are in here just talking about different musical artists that have passed away and how them and their bands, how they touched our lives and the different moments they've been there for, and or if we got to see them live in concert, how it affected us. Uh, I've got to see. Like I said, I got to see Van Halen twice, man. Two wildly different experiences, two wildly different kinds of shows, two wildly different kind of, lead singers who kind of set the tone. Uh, being between Gary Sharon and Sammy Hagar. Unfortunately, I never got to see him with David Lee Roth. I don't know that I would have really wanted to see them on this last tour. I know David Lee Roth doesn't really have the vocals anymore. And it just would have felt like it would have been missing something. But had we known it would have been the last one, of course, we'd have been a fool not to go. But, you can't know until it happens. Looking at that, bands of superstars, you can go back and look at the Highwaymen. There's only two of them left now. We've got Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson, and of course, Willie Nelson's about one nail short of the grave. I don't imagine he'll be with us too many more years. Last stage emphysema, being that he's 83. Yeah, just amazing. It's amazing what music can do for the soul. Whether it gets you pumped up for things like a football game, or whether it make you cry your eyes out when you're going through a broken heart. Uh, but it's amazing how both of those processes are hugely healing. When it takes you down to your bottom and drags you through the rough stuff, it's just as healing as when it takes you to the top and runs you through runs you through your highs. Music has kind of become the backbone of our existence. Uh, Kind of sitting here running my head a lot. I'm gonna put this link out here again. If there's anybody else that wants to come up and talk about the musical people that they've enjoyed over the years that are no longer with us. Hey, 48 State Prospecting. That is a great album. Yeah, I can't really think of a Van Halen album I don't like. Van Halen 3 was kind of hard to swallow. They really went out on a different board, but it wasn't a bad album. It was just very different than what you're used to hearing them from them. Wait a minute. Right. I've seen 2 times Willie, and he lives in Maui. Is that what that's supposed to be? Man, I've seen Willie Nelson a couple of times when I was younger. Being that I live in Texas and I don't live, more than an hour and a half from the Texas Monument. Every year, Willie Nelson used to do a huge free concert for the 4th of July. It's called Picnic in the Park, and he would just do this huge free show for everybody every year at the Texas Monument. Big, big show. It was a lot of fun. Of course, as a kid, especially you're running out around the greens and stuff like that. But Willie ain't passed, though. Willie's still here. We still got him for a little while. He does a lot of singing with his sons go on tour with him now because his voice isn't very strong anymore. So his sons sing with him. They back him up. It's pretty neat. And Leanne, I can't get that video out of my head now, Leanne. Thinking about that one with the end of the line, thinking about the one with Roy Orbison with the picture and the rocking chair. I remember how much that video touched me. Hey Z Rich, how are you, man? We are in here tonight to speak at the passing not only of to speak up not only of Eddie Van Halen, who passed away today at the age of 65, but to pretty much talk about any musical artist that has touched you that has passed away. Hey, DA Sales, what's up, brother? It was good seeing you in your show a little while ago. I didn't get to catch very much of it. Came in at the very end, but it was nice to be there. Thank you for popping off about the Trade Day show on Saturday. I appreciate that. It's nice to see the community of people that I've seen in my channel and in other channels starting to build their own channels, and it just adds so much to our community when the more we see y'all doing, the community just gets bigger and better. It's awesome, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's see here. Says Van Halen was an American rock band formed in Pasadena, California in 1972. I didn't realize they went back that far. Credited with restoring hard rock to the forefront of the music scene. Van Halen is known for its energetic live shows and for the work of its acclaimed lead guitarist Eddie Van Halen. Man, that sound was something else, wasn't it? I mean, come on. The guy could start a song with a drill. A drill. And he played guitar and he played keyboard. I don't think that there was any kind of rock instrument that he couldn't play. And but man, that guitar was magic in his hands. Crafty Dragon, I agree for sure. Thank you for that, Muscle Shell, but no, by no means is it the biggest. We have fallen very, very short of that aspect. Look at the Yankee box. but it is fun for sure. We've had a good run with it. It's on its way to the last two stops right now. It's on its way to Shibby Rob. After Shibby Rob, it'll go to Storm and CA, and that's the end of the line, folks. But what we're here to talk about tonight, of course, is artists that have passed away, how they touched their lives, what the music meant to you. What do you think of the music scene since they've passed and how music has changed? Oh yeah, there was just, I mean, when you talk about guitarists and you talk about who's the best, man, I mean, there's been so many great guitarists. I mean, you've got Prince, you've got Eric Clapton, you got Jimi Hendrix, but Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen just stood out. He stood out amongst his peers. He'll stand out amongst all time. There was a guy named Malcolm Yalmstein, who was a classically trained guitarist or musician, and somebody once asked him in an interview if he thought he was better than Eddie Van Halen, and forgive my language, he said, "Who the fuck is Eddie Van Halen?" So what does Eddie Van Halen do? Eddie Van Halen goes and puts that on his next concert T-shirt. So what do? You go to a concert and you see 5,000 people at a Van Halen concert wearing shirts that say, "Who the fuck is Eddie Van Halen?" And they're popping out $35 a piece for them. Oh man, don't you love the irony in that? Eddie had a sense of humor, that's for sure. Man, nobody has any musical stories they want to come talk about. Nobody wants to has any particular artist that has passed away that their music really meant the world to them. Crafty Dragon, I don't know about that necessarily. My biggest problem with the music for the most part nowadays is literally just the vocals. A lot of people, yeah, we hear a lot about pop, but when you get out of the pop scene, there's still a lot of good rock and roll music out of there. But unfortunately, pop has taken over country. Pop has taken over rock and roll. Pop has, taken over parts of the rap industry, which has basically become mumble rap. I mean, I'm not a huge pop fan. I like pop when it's just pop. I don't like pop when it takes over another genre. And so to me, that's the problem right there. Like you said, these filters, these replays, and stuff like that. I mean, when you hear stuff, I mean, even pop music back in the day, you had to still be able to play a guitar. You had to be able to sing a chord. You had to be able to, run your drums. I mean, music today is definitely not the same. I mean, unfortunately, even the great singers of today use auto tune. I can't stand auto tune. I mean, auto tune as a tool on its own is okay, but when you hear some of these really good singers using it, it just destroys them for me. But I mean, there's still some bands out there that are good. I think Five Finger Death Punch is pretty good. I think Bad Wolves is pretty good. As far as rock bands go, I don't listen to a whole lot of new music, so I really don't know. I've got two stations in my car, and one is the old country station, and the other one's the old rock station. Excuse, excuse me. Excuse me. Um, and even the screaming doesn't bother me in some places. It really depends on the song. Um, it depends on if the screaming helps get the point of the song across. If it's necessary, I don't mind it. When it's just thrown in there, I don't know. Yeah, when they try to use it as a tool instead of letting it just be what it is, it can definitely harm the music. I mean, we've lost a lot of artists in the last few years. Prince was a big one. I mean, being self-taught, coming up out of the gutters. I mean, Prince said when he was poor, he used to like to go sit outside the McDonald's and smell the food that he knew he couldn't afford. Well, how many McDonald's could he have owned when he passed away? It's what talent can do for you. Boy, did he have it. He could play that guitar, he could sing, he could write. Hey, other Jimmy, how are you? Our topic tonight, of course, is not just, I mean, it's the passing of Eddie Van Halen, but it's also, any other musical artist that has passed away that their music touched you. And I don't mean show me on the doll where the music touched you. Hopefully, it touched you in your heart. Um, how many people in here know that Gene Simmons from Kiss was the first person who tried to get Van Halen a record deal? He took some, he paid to record some of their original demos and tried to help them get a record deal. Unfortunately, they did not get one under him, but he did still own a bunch of their demos, and he actually a couple of years ago went to put out the demos because he still owned them, and Van Halen. I think there ended up having to be a lawsuit to stop it, but I mean they couldn't have stopped it anyway. The best they could do was pay him to stop, but I mean he really in the beginning was a big help to them, trying to help get their music out there and promote them and try to put their music out there for the world. Yeah, that was something pretty interesting. I learned that a couple of years ago. Of course, Gene Simmons, I mean he's all about the money. And obviously, we see what kind of money Van Halen turned into. They were one of the world's biggest rock bands. So he was on to something. Put that put that link out there again for anybody that wants to come up and talk about the music. I really wish I could be playing the music in the background, but obviously we know we can't do that. Don't want to get any kind of copyright strikes or anything. I've had I've had a stream shut down midstream for having music in the background. I don't know how some people get away with it. People like Ravenhawk are amazing, amazing, and they have a great channel, but they do stuff with copyrighted music, man, and I just don't understand how they're able to get away with it. I wish them all the luck in the world, but like I said, I tried it and I got shut down. And this was before I ever even had 100. I didn't even have 100 subs at the time. Oh yeah, man. I mean, go back and listen to Eruption, man. Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen could have played in any rock band in our modern times. And any rock band that's come out in the last 20 years, 30 years, has been influenced by Eddie Van Halen, amongst others, of course. Oh, Jump was great. Jump was a great song. Panama was good. As I was telling people, I was saying earlier in the stream, I was blessed twice in my lifetime to get to see Van Halen play live. Um, there is an outdoor venue. Um, there was an outdoor venue called the Woodlands uh, outside of Houston, Texas, and I got to see Van Halen there in 1998 with Gary Sharon from Extreme uh, on vocals, and it was really good. He was pretty faithful to the music from both of the former lead singers, and he and then of course they did a little bit of their own music, the new music, and that was good. But man, 2003 was the year for me. 2003 is when I got to see them, um, and they had Sammy Hagar back on vocals, and I like all three of the lead vocalists that they've had, but Sammy Hagar will always be my favorite vocalist for Van Halen. I mean, as far as live in concert, I mean, I thought he did by leaps and bounds better than the other two, so it was great. You know, but it was neat seeing Gary Sharon in 1998. Man, he was so much younger than everybody else. Man, he was on fire, trying to do something new. That was cool to watch too. He cut his hair off real short. Uh, yeah, blonded it out. It was something else. But that band never would have been what it was if Eddie Van Halen had never picked up that guitar, man. I would cut him up when I'm outside of a department store to wait on the wife shopping for clothes. I hear you, buddy. I mean, this stream wasn't planned. I'm kind of finding myself saying the same thing over and over. I just kind of found myself in a dark place tonight. I'm sitting here reading these different people talking about it. Ozzy Osbourne said Eddie Van Halen was one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with, and we shared so many laughs together. His influence on music, and especially the guitar, has been immeasurable. He was an absolute legend. Eddie, I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Love, Ozzy. I mean, so much respect from a man who was even before his time. Yeah, yeah, Crafty Dragons. But they're still. I mean, they're still all alive. Um, Steven Tyler looks like The Walking Dead, but he's still alive. Um, I think the was it the drummer? I think the I think it was the drummer is the one person that had to be replaced in that band. He had to have major surgery, and he wasn't. They made him re-audition for his part and refused to let him tour because they didn't think he was up to it. He sued. He lost. What do you do? Move on. um, man, I don't know. It's funny though when people ask me what's my favorite song that Eddie Van Halen played on. Um, you know, my favorite song that Eddie Van Halen ever played on. Even though his music was amazing on his records, um, what he put down on what he put down for Michael Jackson, man, was so far ahead of its time, and the way it joined two styles of music together. I know. It's just when they put that out, a lot of people didn't know right off the bat, of course, that was him. Let's see this. How Eddie Van Halen transformed Michael Jackson's "Beat It." Before Eddie Van Halen agreed to add a guitar break to Michael Jackson's "Beat It," one of the most famous cameos in rock history, he had to be sure the phone call from producer Quincy Jones wasn't a practical joke. I went off on him. I went, "What do you want, you effing so and so?" Van Halen told CNN in 2012, 30 years after he worked on the song. And he goes, "Is this Eddie?" I said, "Yeah, what the hell do you want?" He said, "This is Quincy." I'm thinking to myself, I don't know anyone named Quincy. He goes, "Quincy Jones, man." He goes, I went, "Oh, sorry." Van Halen, who died Tuesday at age 65, needed less than an hour in the studio and 20 scorching seconds on a record to join white heavy metal to black pop at a time when they seemed in entirely different worlds. When the Young MTV channel rarely aired videos by black artists, "Beat It" became one of the signature tracks on Jackson's mega-selling Thriller album. Won Grammys in 1984 for Record of the Year, male rock vocal performance, and helped open up MTV's programming. Van Halen himself would admit he initially skeptical of contributing to Jackson's album, wondering how much he had in common with the singer he remembered for chanting ABC easy as 1, 2, 3. That Jackson had written "Beat It" as a rock song anchored by a hard and funky riff by guitarist Steve Lukather. When Van Halen arrived in the studio in Los Angeles, Jones told him he could improvise. Van Halen listened to "Beat It", asked if he could rearrange the song, and added a pair of solos during which engineers would long swear a speaker caught on fire. As he was finishing, Jackson walked in. I didn't know how he would react to what I was doing, so I warned him before he listened. I said, "Look, I changed the middle section of your song," Van Halen went on to tell CNN. "Now, in my mind, he's either going to have his bodyguards kick me out for butchering his song, or he's going to like it. And so he gave it a listen, and he turned to him and went, "Wow, thank you so much for having the passion to not just come in and blaze a solo, but to actually care about the song and make it better." Van Halen worked for free, was not credited on the album, and didn't appear in the video, but his touch was undistinguishable. After the record's release, Van Halen will remember shopping in Tower Records while Beat It was playing on the sound system. The solo come on, and I hear these kids in front of me going, "Listen to this guy trying to sound like Eddie Van Halen." I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "That is me." That was hilarious. Isn't that something? Wow, man. To be another, and to, I mean, think about it. When he helped make that song as huge as it was, he helped make that album as huge as it was. He put himself in a place to be on the number one selling album of all time. I mean, just to touch on that. And as great as Michael Jackson was as a singer and as a performer, would that album have been anywhere near the biggest selling of album of all time without that riff, without that change up? It's hard to know. And yeah, and did it for free. Man, it's funny how when I went and looked up that connection, that article was today. That's something else. Speaking again of rock legends, just legends who have left us. When one time somebody was interviewing Eric Clapton, and they asked Eric Clapton. He said, "How does it feel to be the greatest guitarist alive?" And he said, "I don't know. Why don't you go ask Prince?" Can you imagine being the guy doing that interview? To not only humble yourself and say, "No, I'm not the greatest," but to pick someone specific and put them out above you like that. I thought that was a very, very classy move. Oh. Wow, they haven't put anything on the website yet, but it looks like they haven't put anything up on the website since 2015. So I don't know. Eddie Van Halen's passing kind of feels like, we've lost Eddie Van Halen, we've lost Prince, we've lost um, major pieces of our musical history. It's kind of like uh, the day the music died, the song. Yeah, Yeah, the last album's 2012. A different kind of yeah, that one unfortunately didn't pick up very well. But it was still Van Halen through and through. Well, I've been on here rambling on for 48 and a half minutes. I think I'm going to call it a night. Thank y'all for coming in and hanging out. Y'all make sure and check out the last video I put out today. We're trying to get 200 hours of view time before 3 p.m. Saturday. If we do, that'll knock us up at 4,000 hours. We'll have that part of the project done. If we do have all that done by the time we start trade day, we will be giving away either a random 1 ounce or a random Morgan. So I'd really like to do that for somebody. So if we can get the channel up there where we need it to be, of course it is one of our all-in challenges. It's all or nothing on that one. So have fun, hang out, watch some videos. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Good night, everybody.